My name is Victoria Lane. I'm 30. I live alone in a sunless studio downtown, and I have the kind of smile people mistake for peace. The kind that's learned to fold up pain and wear it like a neat coat. When I was 16, my parents called me a problem. That's what they called me right before they decided to fix the family narrative. Margaret Lane, silver hair, kind eyes that always hit a calculation, said, as she poured coffee for guests. We need stability for Charlotte. Everything must be perfect. Daniel Lane, the patriarch who taught numbers and charm like they were interchangeable, nodded. We can't have distractions. They never said it to my face. They said it over the phone in soft, surgical sentences while I packed a trash bag of clothes and slid in the back door at 3 a.m. They told neighbors I'd run away. They told relatives I was traveling. They filed papers that made it look like I'd chosen my absence. They didn't replace me with a person. They replaced me with a story. Years passed. I learned to be invisible in public and in relationships. Because I'd been invisible for so long, it became a posture. I learned to sell my paintings for enough to pay the rent and to sleep the sleep of someone who doesn't expect the past to ever knock on her door. Then the message came. Family is hosting the Lane Foundation Gala. Dad is being honored. Attendance is requested. It was from an address I recognized immediately. An email thread between Margaret and Charlotte. I almost deleted it. Then my thumb hovered, and something I didn't know was still inside me. An old, stubborn thing said, go. When I drove back to the family house I grew up in, everything smelled the same. Lemon oil on the stairs, the faint perfume of Margaret that always hovered like a presence. The Lane house looked like it had been maintained by people who could afford to look like heroes. A new stone walkway, a plaque out front. The Lane family, dedicated to community service. My name wasn't on the mailbox. Of course it wasn't. Charlotte met me at the door with lipstick and a practiced gasp. Vicky, how good to see you. She hugged me. The gesture was warm, but the hug belonged to a woman who received awards and applause. I hugged back because I have manners and because people like to pretend absence makes reunions sweeter. Dinner that night was a performance. Daniel spoke about legacy and duty. Margaret smiled in a way she'd perfected for cameras. Charlotte brought up how the foundation was expanding into scholarships. Scholarships she'd be overseeing, naturally. They touched the edges of my life like a bruise they never meant to acknowledge, and never once asked me what it had been like to leave, where I'd slept, what I'd eaten, the ways my name had been used as a space in which they stored receipts and secrets. It wasn't until later, alone in the hallway outside my old room, now a walk-in closet with Charlotte's dresses fanning like trophies, that I let myself look. There, at the bottom of a cedar chest marked Lane papers, a tiny envelope stuck out. White, notched, half hidden. I pulled it free and opened it. My heart did the thing it had done as a child, tighten and then drop. Inside, copies. Десятки. Bank statements, corporate registrations, signatures. One form in particular had my name, Victoria Lane, typed in the owner box of something called Lane Heritage Holdings LLC. The address matched the shell company the Lane Foundation used as a fiscal sponsor. Further down, a line item, transfer to Charlotte Lane Design, large sums over years. I read until my eyes stung. A notarized letter, a series of invoices that made no sense. One email from Daniel to Margaret with the subject line, use V as cover. Easier for banks, no press. It was in his voice, the clipped, careful tone he used for accounting. My name was left like a ghost signature across documents that moved money, obscured ownership, and built an empire of charity on a foundation of fraud. They had used me, not just emotionally, but legally. They had invented a ghost daughter on paper and used that identity to launder donations, to shift property, to shelter assets from scrutiny. The worst part? My parents had lied about my absence to make the story tidy. My hands shook. Rage, pure, incandescent, rose like a furnace. The lane between past hurts and present possibilities was narrow, and I found myself standing on it. I stole copies. Not all cautious, just enough. I tucked them into my bag like contraband. Then I left the house and walked to the bench outside, the one with peeling paint Mama used to sit on. I sat with the documents, watching the yard lights blink on like tiny stars. It was quiet. The world hummed on, indifferent to my discovery. I called Maya Lynn, a friend I hadn't seen in years, but who had become a forensic accountant for nonprofit investigations. She answered in 2 rings, her voice is razor-sharp and kind. "You found something," she said immediately, as if she'd been waiting for my call since I sat on the bench. "I did," I breathed. "I found something they never wanted me to see. Bring it to me. Tonight. Lock your phone. Do not let them know you found this." We met at an all-night diner, grease lamps and vinyl booths and a corner table. The kind of place where secrets are safe because the world keeps moving around them. I slid the photocopies across the table. Maya scanned them quickly, thumbs working like tiny pistons. "They used your name?" she said, disbelief and fury coloring her voice. "Victoria, this is structured. Shell companies, false invoices, falsified signatures. They routed donations meant for the foundation into private accounts, and then funneled them into Charlotte's company. That's embezzlement and tax fraud." "This goes back how far?" I asked, my throat tight. 5, maybe 7 years. That's enough to be major. She set the papers down and looked at me in a way that split the night open. "You want them exposed, right?" "Publicly?" "Yes," I said. The word felt like a small weapon I'd manufactured out of the shards of my life. Public and humiliating. They made me a story. "I want to show them the headline." She nodded, tapping her pen. "Good, I know a journalist, Ethan Pierce. He hates corruption. He'll want this. But you need more than papers. You need bank records, the accounting trail, someone on the inside to verify. And you need a stage." My mind found the stage like it was a compass. The Lane Foundation Gala, 2 nights from now. The event where my father would be lauded and Charlotte would take a bow. The gala would be live-streamed. Dignitaries, donors, cameras. A perfect place to flip the lights on. "Can you pull account traces?" I asked. "I'll do my best. But be careful. They know the ropes," Maya said. "If they smell this, they'll try to discredit you." "Let them try," I said. "They taught me to be unseen long enough. If they think they can intimidate me back into silence, they don't know who I've become." Back at the house that night, I moved like a ghost. They thought I was asleep in the spare room they had generously offered me while I was visiting. I was awake, and I was planning. I had a friend in the press, Ethan Pierce, a man who'd fronted stories that had toppled regional politicians. He was amused and delighted by the truth when I walked into his office and threw the copies across his desk. He didn't blink. He leaned back, hands steepled. "Victoria, you have to understand. For a story like this, you'll be the villain for half the town. You'll be accused of fabricating. We'll need proof, authenticity checks, transitions, and you'll need courage." "I have courage," I said. "As it turns out, I have a lot." Ethan smiled without warmth. "All right, we'll build the narrative. You get me bank statements and emails. Maya will validate. We'll need to lock down the digital copies and line up legal counsel." It took 2 full days of painstaking work. Maya found a ledger that should not have been on any public record. A hidden account at a shadow bank that had been moving funds through a web of shell companies. One transaction, a transfer of $120,000 to a construction firm in Florida, was marked consulting fee. But the construction firm was owned by Charlotte's husband. Another transfer paid for renovations in the Lane house that were never declared on the foundation's donors list. The financial picture revealed greed, dressed as philanthropy. They had not only given my room away to Charlotte, they had built an entire lie around that act, and then used that lie to funnel money, to conceal income, and to present themselves as benevolent community leaders. The moral calculus in my chest changed. This was not merely about hurt or being invisible. This was a crime that had targeted the public as well as me. Donors believed in them. People gave money for scholarships that never existed. People trusted them, and they repaid that trust with deceit. We formed a plan that was tight, surgical, and public. Ethan prepared an exposé package. It would go live at the gala. A live screen reveal of the key documents projected behind the podium while the audience watched, while cameras rolled. Maya would have forensic verification on hand, teleconferenced and ready. Local law enforcement would be tipped immediately afterward. The sequence had to be clean, dramatic, undeniable. You realize, Ethan said, looking straight at me, this will ruin them. We're not just humiliating them in front of relatives. We're stripping their veneer of respectability. The donors, the partners, they'll pull. The charity will be frozen. They will lose everything. Good, I said. The word tasted like glass, but it was honest. We rehearsed our moves like a theater troupe. Ethan would cue the slideshow. Maya would be on the phone with a senior inspector ready to move. I would walk on stage at an unannounced moment and speak. No ambush, no yelling, just truth. The truth. The ballroom gleamed with golden chandeliers, laughter echoing across polished marble floors. Everyone who mattered in the city was there. Investors, politicians, family friends, and every soul who had once believed that the Lanes were the perfect family. Victoria stood at the back, her reflection shimmering in the glass doors. The same doors she'd once been forbidden to touch after she'd been cut off 5 years ago. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with anticipation. Tonight wasn't about anger anymore. It was about truth. Her brother Nathan was on stage, raising his glass. To our father, the man who built everything we stand for. Applause filled the room. Her mother smiled, pride plastered on her face like expensive makeup hiding guilt. Victoria stepped forward, heels clicking against marble. Conversations froze. Heads turned. Victoria? Her father whispered, his glass halfway to his lips. Yes, she said softly, but her voice carried through the hall. It's me, the daughter you erased. A tense silence spread like wildfire. She walked toward the stage, calm, deliberate, unstoppable. Every camera in the room turned her way. I didn't come to ruin your night, she continued, setting her small black clutch on the podium. I came to return what's yours, the truth. Her father's expression hardened. This is not the place. It's the only place, she cut in. Because every lie you've told was told here, in front of them. The guests shifted uneasily. Victoria opened her clutch and pulled out a single USB drive glinting like a weapon. She plugged it into the event screen's laptop. The projector flickered to life, and a series of documents appeared. Wire transfers, offshore accounts, signatures. Gasps rippled through the crowd. These, she said, voice steady, are records showing millions of dollars siphoned from the Lane Foundation, the charity you all so generously donated to. The money was never used for hospitals or education. It was used to build this empire. Her mother clutched her pearls. Victoria, that's enough! Oh, I'm just getting started. She pressed another key. A video began to play. Nathan and their father arguing in an office. The audio was clear. If she finds out, she'll go to the police. Then make sure she never comes back, Nathan. We can't risk her ruining everything. Every eye turned to them. Her father's face drained of color. Victoria let the video run. She didn't look at him. She looked at the people who once whispered about her, the ones who believed the lies. You told everyone I was unstable, that I ran away with company money. You took everything. My name, my reputation, my future, and built your empire on it. Her father slammed his hand on the podium. This is manipulation. She's lying. But no one believed him. The truth had already spread through the room like a storm. The screens kept flashing. Emails, contracts, signatures. Victoria turned back to the crowd. I tried to move on. I wanted to forgive. But when I found out you were using the foundation's funds, my foundation, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Her voice broke slightly, not out of weakness, but release. I didn't come for revenge. I came for peace. Because peace doesn't come from pretending nothing happened. It comes from ending the lie. She unplugged the drive. Silence. Her father sank into a chair, head in his hands. Her mother wept quietly. Nathan stormed out, cameras following him. Victoria stepped down from the stage, her heels echoing louder than any applause. People moved aside. Some whispered her name. Others filmed. But she didn't care. Outside, the night was cool. The sky over the city shimmered faintly with rain clouds, and for the first time in years, she breathed. Really breathed. A voice came from behind. Ms. Lane? It was Detective Morales, the same one she'd contacted weeks ago. He nodded. We've got everything we need. They'll face charges for fraud and embezzlement. Victoria smiled faintly. I'm not doing this to destroy them. I just want it to end. Morales nodded, understanding. Sometimes justice looks like destruction. Sometimes it just looks like truth. She looked back at the ballroom, the lights still shining, but the laughter gone. The Lane name used to mean power, she said softly. Now it'll mean something else. Consequence. She turned, walking into the night, rain beginning to fall like the world was washing everything clean. Weeks later. The headlines were everywhere. Lane family under investigation for fraud. Daughter blows whistle. Victoria sat in a small coffee shop by the coast, laptop open. The emails were endless. Strangers thanking her for her courage, for exposing corruption. She smiled sadly. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You didn't have to do this. Mom, Victoria stared at it for a long time, then typed back. You didn't have to erase me. She set the phone down. The ocean stretched before her, waves crashing against rocks, wild, relentless, beautiful. Just like truth, she whispered almost to herself. You took everything from me, but you gave me something greater. Freedom. Her reflection in the window looked peaceful. The girl who once begged to belong was gone. In her place stood a woman who owned her story. Victoria Lane, the daughter they tried to erase. The truth they could never bury.